Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host. Let's talk about EV charging. It's really funny. So, having a conversation around why do EV chargers get put in this place, in this little nook and cranny that you got to really know about on where to go. And luckily, Tesla, for their whole charging network until beginning of 2025, everything was owned and operated by Tesla. So they owned all the charging stations. They were the ones that put them in and they operate them. Now, there are people that privately own a Tesla charging station. However, Tesla still manages all of them. They handle any transactions, any customer service, anything like that. When you see a Tesla charging station, you can know that it's still still managed by Tesla. Tesla's taking the payments for anything and handling all of that. But it also means that's why it shows up in your Tesla on where the location of that charging station is, or how far you are from a Tesla charging station. Now, the reason I'm talking about Tesla more than ChargePoint or some of these other EV chargers is, one, Tesla has the biggest network. Two, Tesla chargers also have a 99.99% uptime, so they are super reliable. However, they are also extremely expensive. The thing with the ChargePoint chargers, and the reason why most of them don't have the uptime that the Tesla chargers end up having, Tesla has Ethernet cable to all of their charge stands, all their charging docking stations. Where some of the others like ChargePoint, they do have a cellular chip in there, but if that cellular chip for whatever reason loses cellular connectivity, the cell network goes down, it's got to restart. And so those ChargePoint chargers that you'll see at like Walmart or another bunch of other locations end up having problems because they've lost a data signal. It's not because the charger doesn't work or anything else, but it's some of the electronics in them that end up having a problem. But if you, again, pull a full Ethernet cable to them, actually hardline the charger, you're not going to have any issues. So that's one of the things when you're installing these that's going to be a lifesaver for you, is to actually pull an Ethernet cable, go find a data cable somewhere, right? A data infrastructure to put into these chargers. So you might need to have AT&T, Comcast, whatever, drop a spot for you, a modem, whatever, so that it does have internet connectivity. So that's one of the big things on EV chargers. Next thing is on location. So why do these things get put where they do? A lot of it is really by two things. The landowner decides that they want to put them in, and like Tesla chargers are not inexpensive. These things are hundreds of thousands of dollars just for the hardware. And then not to mention the installation for the electrical contractors, any utility costs you might have. Now, a lot of states do have a ton of rebates right now for EV here at the end of 2025 and maybe into the first half of 2026. There's a ton of rebates, and there have been a ton of rebates by the utilities for a number of years. So when you go to put in chargers, you're getting a bunch of money back for doing that. So it does work a lot to your benefit. You're offsetting a number of your costs to do that. So one is the landowner chooses to do it. Two is you still have to go through like planning and zoning, right? So the Planning and Zoning Commission does have to approve where these things go. And the next thing that you also have to have for a lot of these chargers, which is very annoying in California, is if you put in two or more chargers, one of them has to be an accessible parking space. But it can't take away from the existing ADA spaces that you already have in your parking lot. So you're adding additional handicap accessible charging spaces in your parking lot for these EV chargers. You know, that it's it is what it is in California in doing that, but it's something that a lot of folks don't consider, that they might be losing some regular parking spaces because they're putting in EV charging and now have to have some of those EV charging spaces be handicap accessible, which how many handicap people are driving these? I don't know. But that's what the law states and the codes dictate in California. Now, in other states, not a big deal. Don't have to worry too much about that. You just put in the chargers wherever you want to, and you have yourselves a good day. So that's the two big things in location is landowner's going to do it. Then you go through all the code review and all that kind of good stuff, and city approves where they're going to get put in. And then for Tesla and Tesla charging, you can make considerable amounts of money with those charging posts. Tesla does take their cut for it, but you're basically just paying for the rate of energy, right? You buy energy at this, sell it at that. You're going to make the difference for it. And then it's all on volume, right? The more people that use the charger, the better off you're going to do. Utility's going to make more money and everybody's happy. So the next thing ends up being you're going to have to add power production to your grid. So what does that mean? Well, it depends on where you live, right? In some places, it's, well, we're really not damming too many more rivers or streams or anything like that for hydro power production. That's pretty much maxed out. There might be a handful of areas that we could do that in the West, but that's it. And I say the West because you need fall and drop out of a hydro facility in a dam, right? You need a delta in height between where the water is and where it runs through a turbine so that you get head pressure and you can spin a shaft. You can do that in slower flowing streams, but not as effective. So that's why they're all in the West is you actually have drop, you have mountains, you have elevation, you have everything that you need to really run hydro. Where in the East, you just don't have it all that much. You have a few like Niagara and things like that, but most all hydro production is in the West and most of it is on the Columbia River. So we could dam a lot of rivers in California. Not going to happen in the probably ever in my lifetime, but that would be the next thing for power production. Outside of that, you've got really, you go through the renewables. So wind, solar, water. So we talked about water. So wind and solar, intermittent. Solar's only during the day. Wind's only when the wind blows. And then you got to replace the turbine blades and everything else for renewables. It's not a super renewable. It is a renewable resource, but the way that we extract it is not as efficient as we would like it to be. And then nobody wants to stare at a windmill, even though they're all for putting windmills up, except when it's in their backyard. So then they say no, and there go the windmills. Solar, same thing, intermittent, and it's not going to produce enough power to then charge your car and put it down the road. So then you go to the next forms of power production, which are natural gas. That's a big chunk of power production in the U.S., especially with fracking. That opened up a ton of natural gas resources throughout the country and it really allowed us to do a ton more power production. So that's really what a lot of the newer power plants are getting put in with, which is funny because San Francisco outlawed natural gas in any new construction, yet all of their power plants are running off of natural gas that feed San Francisco. So, there's that. But yeah, so that would be the next set of power production, mainly because I don't see nuclear going in anytime soon. You would have coal plants, but the EPA has pretty much banned those from being built anymore. The ones that are still in production are still going to run, but really you end up with natural gas being pretty much the only means of power production that you could go to moving forward right now environmentally in the U.S. Again, nuclear is a great option. I don't see those getting approved anytime soon. So that's really all the things with EV, right? Is the power to put them in, the chargers, and then where you're going to put them. Now, when it comes to each level of chargers, so there's 3 levels of chargers, 1, 2, and 3. So level 1 is like your 120 volt outlet. It's not really that powerful. It takes forever to trickle charge your car. Level 2 is, you might see those at a gas station or something else. It's a bigger wall-mounted module. They're usually 240 volts or 208 volts. They'll put out maybe 40 to 50 kW, maybe up to 80 kW, decent charger, right? It'll charge your car in, few hours kind of thing, right? Not, you don't have to wait fully overnight, but it's going to be still a 4 hour charge, let's say. And then you have the superchargers, right? That's Tesla, that's level 3. And those things, like each post is, I think, 150 kilowatts or 180 kilowatts, because the whole Tesla charger's 337 kilowatts for two. So that's, yeah, 165 kilowatts is like the output of each post, right? So double your level 2s, and then your car gets charged in whatever, 30 minutes. That's the 3 big levels, but that's big jumps in energy and power and being able to charge your car in 20, 30 minutes or whatever you need to top off. So yeah, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of EV chargers, where you put them, how they get approved, what the kind of environmental and power production efforts are for them, and then at the end of the day, what each charger outputs. So there's your recap of EV chargers and how we put them in and design them here in the US.